Okay, so today I'm working on a set of 745 Li headlights. These are pre-facelift model. They're very involved, intricate headlights, and I'm going to walk you through and show you the process and the tools that I've used to refurbish one of them. I am by no means an expert, but if I can do it, anybody can do it. So hopefully this video will help you guys along and help you keep these very nice vehicles on the road longer. Okay, so before we get started here, I figured I'd show you the difference in the looks of just the one that I've already worked on and polished and the one that we're getting ready to take apart here. And you can see that there's just pitting and hazing in the UV protectant layer on the lens. On the inside, you can see that this is the HID projector. There's a haze and a film that just gets on the inside from heat and age, dust, whatever. It just builds up over time. Same haze builds up on the reflectors, which makes them not quite as bright. Here you can see this is the driver's side that I've already done. I still need to finish wet sanding and polishing the lens here. You can see there's still some UV protectant that I'm working on. So you can see inside here that how much cleaner it is just with a little bit of polish and wiping this down. But there you go. You can definitely tell like the turn signals will be a lot brighter. Highs and low beams should be brighter. I even spent a little time polishing the halo ring. Let's take a look at the tools that we're going to be using to do this. So I've got a Dremel with a large cutting wheel. I've got a couple pry tools here. A 5/64 Allen. This worked inside here. I didn't have any torque small enough to get some of the very fine screws out for reflectors, but I found that this one worked pretty good for it. I've got various pick tools here. These are cheap Harbor Freight pick tools. 4 of them's like $1. I've got a ton of them. We're going to use a T15 and a T20 Torx, a 10 millimeter. Definitely going to need some type of long extension to reach down in there. And we'll need the utility knife so that we can cut the gasketing material off. Okay, before we get started even thinking about cutting this thing, I want you to make note of a couple things. There are 7 screws around the outside of this, and you can see they have little nubs that stick out. These are actually screws, and these screws hold in the inner reflector cover, this whole piece in here, all this black stuff. So you definitely want to be careful when you're cutting around these areas and prying and everything else that we're about to get into, because this is very hard, brittle plastic, and it will break very easily. And these are very important for holding this thing all back together once you finish up here. Let's get started. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start removing the bulbs and the ballast for the HID and the control for the motors. Let's go ahead and get this stuff off the outside of this. Alright, we're going to use the T15 here. Take the ballast off. Let's get the 3 screws out. It'll just pry right off there. Go ahead and set the screws back with this, and we'll set this aside that way we don't lose the screws. Same thing for the motor control over here. 3 screws on it and pop right off. Here you can see where they already saw some of the flaking insulation, and we're having issues with the this is for the halo light, and wow, one of the plugs actually even a little bit broken here, but still usable. So this is some of the stuff that we're fixing. You can see down in here, right here, I mean, it's already starting to flake off. It doesn't even really take much. I mean, just touching and moving it makes this stuff just flake off. Okay, we'll go ahead and get the motor out. This is the self-leveling motor here, which actually aligns the headlights up and down. Now this actually slides inside in a bracket, so you actually got to unscrew it and then slide it. Wiggle this out to the side here. There's the motor. We'll go ahead and take out the high beam bulb. This just twists out, and then there's 2 clips here that hold the harness on. And carefully wiggle the harness off, and be careful, you don't want to touch the glass. There you can see all this insulation that's been flaking off, just moving it around, changing bulbs over the years. We're going to get in here and we're going to fix all this stuff. Go ahead and get the park lights out. You just twist and pull right out. I've got new bulbs for these. You can see over time the heat's just even making this stuff flake off. There's some of that in there that I have to clean out. Another one. And then this one right here for the outer light. There we go. Alright, now we're ready to start really dismantling this thing. We're going to start by removing this rubber piece. It goes around here, it seals it to the hood. Start here at the bottom of it. You can see this thing actually wraps all the way around, so we're going to pop this off. This is just plastic welded, so you just give it a little pull and it'll snap off there. There we go. Let's get this one off. There it is. Alright. So this one actually came out in one piece, not too bad. But even looking at it here, I can see all the cracking in it, just years and years. Alright, so we'll have to take these, there's 4 of these lens clips. Stick a screwdriver in there and pry them right off. I'm just going to go ahead and try to mark on here about where these are, so I can try to save some of this to help hold it on. I didn't really think about doing this when I did the driver's side. Same thing here. Now this outer lens has 1 screw right here on this outside, and it's one of these small ones. This is the one that I'm using the 5/64 Allen on, so we'll get that one. Plastic baggies will be your friend. I'm going to put all these little tiny screws in here to make sure I don't lose anything, because there's going to be a fair amount of them. Now there's a couple ways to do headlights. We're going to cut and pry a lot of this. Other headlights that don't have all the harnesses and motors and crazy stuff on the inside, you can bake them apart. That doesn't really work well with German plastics because they are hard and brittle, and heat is not their friend. That's why I've chose to cut this stuff. Damn mosquito in my Mountain Dew. Yeah, here mosquito. Okay, so here's what we're about to get into. We're getting ready to start cutting into this, and I've kind of marked out some key areas where I want to keep top pieces here, like that hold down the rubber piece, where those clip on. I have to be able to get enough access to cut as much gasketing out of the way as possible so I can pry these apart. It's a very time consuming and surgical process. Don't rush this. Like, I'll hit this here, and then I'll hit this along here very carefully because I don't want to get this inside lens. This thing is basically like a C, and the lens actually pops in there into the middle, and there's this insanely grippy rubberized sealant that is all the way around inside of that channel that we have to get in there to cut to even be able to get this thing apart. Take your time, try to plan your cuts a little bit. Like I said, you want to try to leave some of this, some of the C a little bit in there so the lens can help keep the shape of the light and everything else. So we'll go ahead and get started with that. And here we go. Beautiful. There's one small piece off here. You can see the rubberized material in there. underneath the lens where you can. Very carefully. Try to cut that gasket material in there. Okay, here we're getting ready to cut the bottom of the headlight housing. There's a lot of stuff here, so you want to make note of these tabs. They actually slide into the brackets on the cars you saw when you were removing them. We got another one of those screws in here that holds in this reflector housing. Screw there, that was part of holding this outside lens part on. So let's get Dremel surgical. Stuff really is a pain in the butt. It's like the consistency of a soft tire. Broke that. Out of this, I just got a 90-degree pick here, and I'm just trying to twist it underneath and trying to pull this rubber. The more that we can get apart now, the easier it's going to be when we actually go try to separate this. But again, you kind of got to use a gentle, forceful hand, otherwise there's a good chance you'll damage this to the point it's not even usable. Which is definitely not something that I really want to do with a $1,200 headlight. Be careful, I don't want to damage the lens inside too much. Sweating. Oh my goodness. Okay, so there we go. We finally got the lens off. It probably took me about 2 to 3 hours of just non-stop with it. I'm sweating horribly. It's kind of toasty in my shed, and this was just a lot of work. And you just got to go slow and try to cut as much gasket material out of the way as you can. Slowly pry on it. You don't want to crack it, otherwise you're SOL. Got to go get a used one, start all over again. So we're going to go ahead and work on getting some of this gasket material cleaned up and out of the way so that we can get to the screws that I pointed out earlier to start popping out some of these interior pieces. Okay, so now we're going to use our small little 5/64 Allen, and we're going to go around and get out the 7 screws that hold all of this housing into here. You can kind of see them. You might have to cut some of this gasket material out of the way here and there so you can get to the screws. Once we get everything out of this housing, we'll go back around and try to clean up a bunch of this gasket material so we can get a good bond later on when we reassemble this. I should have put these in a little baggie because I don't want to lose them. Alright, now that I got those 7 out, I can pop the whole black piece with the halos and stuff. I can pop that out of my way now. I have to go at this with the pry tools again to get all this gasket material. Now just very carefully trying to pop this up. It actually sits on the bottom lip of this clear lens, and also inside these halo rings are plastic pieces that actually sit on the edge of the fiber optics. So good news is you can only fuck it up once and then it's no good. God, I got so much gasket material over here. That's my biggest problem. Trying to break this back corner free without breaking the tiny plastic mounting tab. Ooh, there we go. Whew. Okay, we'll try to get out this reflector next. Well, in addition to the 2 screws that were up here to take this reflective housing off, there's actually another screw here and right here. And again, this will be that 5/64. Almost missed one. There's one. Next, I'm going to work on getting out this projector plate. It's held in by 3 different locations. An adjuster here, an adjuster up here, and the motor, which would be down here, which we already removed. I know these things can unsnap. I haven't been able to figure out how to unsnap them easily, and I don't want to break them because you really be up shit's creek without it. So here's what I did. I can get in the back here and take this bolt out with a T20. So we'll go ahead and get that right up in there. Take that out. Okay. Now for the other one, I can't really get in there. So what I ended up doing was actually just unscrewing it all the way with the 10mm right back here on the adjuster. Alright, I'd put the camera down for a few minutes there while I was trying to get it. It was a little clogged up and the gear was binding a little bit. So I actually needed both my hands so I could hold it in place and turn it with the wrench. Okay. Nice and careful. Okay, now back here, got a plug. So go in there. Just got a single lock here on the top. Hard to see there, but with a pinch and a wiggle, and it just pops right off. I'll slide this out. I need to undo this. I'll just pull straight out there. A 4-pin plug, and that's it. I'll go ahead and I'll stick this back on there just because I don't want it to get lost. Well, there we go. There's projector housing. There's the motor, which controls the lateral movement left and right. Alright, now with the projectors and reflectors and everything out the way, I'll get in here and I'll show you what I'm talking about with the degradation of the insulation. You can already see, like, this is all cracked here. I mean, these are power and ground wires. And I mean, it's like that all the way throughout. Any type of little vibration would have cracked the insulation. It may have fallen off. Here you got all the stuff for the motors and stuff, so who knows how well the auto leveling headlights were even working. Now this is where you really want to take a lot of pictures and mental notes before you start taking this area apart, because it is all very tight in here, and if you don't get it all correct going back in, There's a good chance you're going to break something or just not be able to get things to fit correctly. I kind of was having some trouble on the driver's side because once I finished, I realized that the wires that I'm actually using are a tiny bit thicker on the insulation than these. So in areas like up in here where you're looping around and behind the fiber optics plates and all through here, it just made it very tight and hard to get these fiber optic pieces back in here to sit flush and correctly so that the projector lights would go on and the halo rings would snap over and everything would light up correctly. So we're going to work on pulling out the fiber optics next, because this bracket here is actually holding down a lot of the harness. And you want to be careful because just like our insulation on our wires, the insulation on the fiber optics gets brittle, hard, falls apart. So definitely want to be careful. This is all like very fine hairs that transmit the light from your light all the way around, using these acrylic tubes too to add some more in there where the projectors are. We're using our 5/64 wrench again. I'm going to take this little heat deflector plate out of the way. One screw, it'll pull right out. Set that to the side. So there's actually 3 screws. One way down in here, 2, and 3 hold the bracket in. Then the fiber optics plate itself that the light shines into is actually held down by 2 more. One's buried here and one's buried here. So we're going to very carefully try to get these out of the way here. That takes care of the plate. I'll very carefully try to maneuver this a little bit here. I don't think I can get down into this one easily. I wish I had something longer to work here with, but make it do with what I got. There we go. Alright. So there's all my screws are out for all the fiber optics and the fiber optic plate here running across. Try to remove these out of the way as gently as possible, because just as I'm moving and touching more, this cover's falling off. Nice and easy. Okay, now I'm finally down to all of the guts of this thing. There you can see some of the insulation was just falling off while I was slightly moving the fiber optics. Now we can start just unsnapping the harness. Oh yeah, this plug over here has 2 more of those small screws, so let's just pop right over. I just want to get some good video here of how all these wires are ran through here, just in case I run into any trouble. Here's the plug, and you can see another plug. There's the wires, it's the motor wires. Back to the power. Alright, let's get all this harness popped out of here. Alright, so these rings here actually have a couple snaps on the inside, so I'll just take these picks here, pop them in from the back side. 1, 2, and 1 more right. 3. Same thing on this one. Just gonna get the pry tool behind there, put a little upward pressure on it. And 1 more, should pop right off. Put down here, just pull this out. lot of these little clips, just put a little pressure on it, slide the wires out. Again, we want to try to be as gentle with this as we can for now to keep the shape. And okay. Alright, and then this clip down here has some lock tabs. I'm just going to carefully push these in. Alright, so here's my problem before. I could not figure out how to pop this pin out. I don't know if I just don't have anything small enough to do the release, but I just wasn't able to figure it out. So, alright, I'm going to go ahead and cut these 3 wires in this top plug. Give myself plenty of space to work when I come back. And then that's it. And I'll remove the harness. Again, I'm trying to be very gentle with this. And that's it. Okay, so at this point I still kind of need to go with a razor blade around here, so I'm going to work on that here for a second. Push this out the way. Just try to get off this old gasketing material. Alright, well, I think that looks pretty good. So I'll set this aside. I want to wash this whole thing off here. Okay, so I've been at this on and off for a couple of hours all throughout the day. I got it all apart. I've got the gasket material cleaned off. I got everything in pieces all over my shed.